September of last year. A lot has happened in between on UNdata, and this meeting here is serves the purpose of giving all of you an update and also get your feedback and also your support on the work that we are doing. Now, today's meeting was meant to be chaired by Francesca Perucci, the director here of the Development, Data and Outreach branch. However, Francesca just came back from a mission, and it seems that the COVID bug got to her, so she will not be able to join us this morning, or maybe she will join us, but will not be chairing this meeting. So therefore, I will be chairing this meeting. My name is Matthias Reister. I'm the chief of the data development section, where the current UNdata is located. Again, welcome to everybody here at this meeting. We have a very interesting agenda. We have a lot to show to you today. And maybe, Yushi, you can share our agenda of today's meeting in the chat.
I've already shared that in the chat box.
Excellent. So just very briefly, we will give you an update of the overall status of work. Then we will introduce some of the background thinking that went into the work that we have been undertaken. And then the third item will be the presentation of a pre-MVP, so a pre-minimum viable product that we hope to launch expect to launch end of November. And then the last agenda item will be the next steps and the future work plans. So with this, concludes my brief welcoming remarks. So then let me go right away to the first agenda item, which is the update on the overall status of work. And as it happens, I will be myself presenter of this first agenda item. So I hope you can all see my presentation. Yushi, can we see?
Yes.
Thank you.
I can see that.
Okay, just a brief update where we stand, and here some core elements of the modernization of the UNdata. Here with UNdata, we want to enhance the UN's family strategic position as the center of excellence for authoritative, comparable, and high-quality data. Also, second, we want to advance this vision with a dramatically improved platform by end of 2022. Also, third, we want to enhance visibility and use of existing data assets from across the UN family. All these efforts should focus on data to support evidence-based action and overall increase visibility of the UN system as the leader in development, peace and security and human rights data by 2025. So these are overall 5 objectives that are guiding our work. Here, a slide that we've shown before, maybe already in September of last year, but maybe back then it wasn't so well elaborated as now. Really, the vision is here that we move from the current UNdata, which basically followed a warehouse approach, to a federated architecture with automated processes, and that is high capacity. The current UNdata was a burden for respondents, for agencies providing data, but also for UNSD dealing with that data. It's characterized by limited data assets, and it's also characterized by a siloed access to the data. In the new UNdata, we want to have the agencies as co-owners. We foresee a potentially unlimited range of data assets, and we want to have that fully integrated with data exploration, meaning the ability to explore data in an interactive way. Now, what's the status of work? So here, our status of work is mostly reflected in what we call the MVP roadmap. The MVP, what is an MVP? MVP is a minimum viable product. It's an early basic version of a product that meets the minimum necessary requirements for use, but can be adapted and improved in the future, especially after customer feedback. And this is exactly what we're aiming at today's meeting to get your feedback. So the MVP will explore and aims to demonstrate innovative approaches for content presentation and data integration, such as creating a content platform as opposed to a data catalog platform and building on a knowledge graph. And to this, we will have quite some more information in a little bit. Now, just to let you know what all happened throughout 2022. So in January 20, we had a ECDC meeting, a deputy committee and executive committee meeting where the modernization of the UNdata portal was under agenda and where we received support to move forward. Then we also had a UNdata pilot study, and we worked with some of the agencies that are also here present at this meeting. We also then had 2 workshops supported by Deloitte, in which we undertook a very detailed and very strong effort to understand user needs. So we had 2 workshops, one in May and one in June. Then building on that work, we came up with our plan and then also hired consultants to support that work. Our lead consultants were hired in June, and also Data Story joined formally our project. Then subsequently, we developed or established a cycle of work with a total of 4 cycles in which we progressed in the design of the MVP. Of course, initially you design the overall scope and the architecture, then you work on prototypes, and then also now in the 3rd cycle, we also intensified our work on the development and testing of data modeling and our integration approach, supported by 2 additional consultants. So in addition to the 2 lead consultants that we hired in June, we brought 2 additional consultants on board. That allowed us then also to continue with the pilot agencies in our work on data modeling and data integration. Now the 4th cycle in which we are currently in, this is the development of the MVP and the respective data infrastructure. Here we also had again a follow-up meeting with the pilot agencies that are supporting the work. And we also had a presentation to the CCS UN data task team on showing them some of the things that we will be showing in some more detail today. Then for end of November, we are planning the launch of this minimum viable product. Then next steps here already indicating there will be also then an update to the ECDC in January 2023. So this was the work on the MVP, but there was also in parallel work on the mid and long-term planning, the post-MVP and the long-term planning. And here there were 2 elements. There are 2 elements. One element was, of course, the design and the design of the MVP platform, about which we will hear quite some more detail. Therefore, I'm not going in any details now. And then a second element, of course, was a strategic roadmap. This is work that is still in progress and about which we will also hear quite some more in the subsequent presentations. So this concludes my brief overview on the update of the overall status. And with this, I would like now then to open the floor for any questions that you may have. So I'm, Yushi, if there's anything coming into the chat, you can post questions in the chat, or I think participants can also raise their hand and then probably speak.
Hey, Matthias, I don't think there's any question being posted in the chat, and I don't see any hands up. Just let me
Okay,
know.
good. So then I suggest we are advancing. There's one
Sure.
hand
Yep.
being raised. Yes. Nazaria, please.
Hello,
If you
my
may,
name.
yeah.
Hello, my name is Nazaria from Department of Statistics, Malaysia. It has been a long time, 1 year ago. I just want to clarify in terms of the coverage of the data. Is it just SDG indicators or other types of data from population, trade, or some and so on?
Thank you very much for this question. So the object of the UN data platform is to make all UN data assets available, meaning it's not limited to the SDG indicators and related information. It's really all the data in the respective specific statistical domains, capturing all the efforts on data that are undertaken by UN agencies that are active in the area of statistics, which of course also includes the SDG indicators, but it's not limited to them.
Thank you very much.
If there are no further questions, then I suggest we are moving on. The questions are coming with the details, I guess. So then I don't want to hold back here on the next agenda item, which is the introduction of the background and approach for the new UN data portal. And here I would like to give the floor to my colleague, Luis González Morales. Please, Luis.
Thank you, Matthias, and hello, everybody. I hope you can see my screen in full presentation mode. I will give a little bit of background information and about the approach that we are following for the development of this new modernized UN data portal, and in particular about this approach that Matthias already mentioned of building a UN data knowledge graph. So just going back to what is the challenge that we are trying to address. So this is a challenge of data integration. Or the current data landscape is characterized by a very decentralized ecosystem where different actors, different agencies, entities are responsible for different data sets in various domains. And each uses different terminology, different data model structures geared for their various communities of users. And so the data is produced in different formats, in different comes in at varying frequencies, levels of the segregations, and so on. So this is the challenge of integrating very heterogeneous data from multiple sources. And our job is to connect the dots, to provide users with a unified entry point so that they get insights that are actionable, so they can explore, analyze, and visualize all this rich information in a unified way, looking into the deep interrelationships across the different datasets. It's combating this siloed approach that Matthias was referring to at the beginning. So this knowledge graph approach is a new approach to look into data integration that captures the rich context of the data. So in the form of the relationships that are meaningful to users between different data elements. It is a flexible way of modeling data or capturing the data that can evolve as we expand the scope of content, adding new structures, adding new types of data, new relationships between data. So this is an approach that can be growing over time. It's flexible. It's not relying on a rigid set of structures that need to be decided upfront. It also enables to discover relationships that are implicit in the data through the use of technologies like machine reasoning. And to link to external resources, knowledge resources, developed by third parties that are available on the semantic web. So it's a way of bringing the data out into this semantic web ecosystem, so that not only what we maintain is the full scope of what is accessible to users, but users can also, or applications can also make links to related resources maintained by external parties. It provides more powerful search and query capabilities related not only to predefined categorizations, but also to search that is more is closer to the ways different user communities think about the data. And related to what I was saying before of being flexible, it allows to grow incrementally, adding new data sets, adding new ways of representing the data as the user needs change, as the data ecosystem and the technology changes. And finally, ultimately, what this approach allows us to do is to create richer user experiences, more interactive, where users can traverse the different contents in multiple ways, discovering the interconnections between the issues they care about. So we are embracing this approach of building a knowledge graph, building on experiences that have been gained over the past few years. So we are not starting from scratch. So we are leveraging existing and emerging standards. Our efforts are informed by successful experiences by other organizations like the World Economic Forum and the World Bank, and many others. And we are relying on the expertise of policy experts, statistics experts, knowledge management specialists across the UN system and beyond. And in doing this, we are adopting tested technology solutions developed by external technology partners, as Matthias was saying, for instance, working with data storing. We are making a big upfront investment in data modeling. Our efforts at the beginning are very much focused in looking ways to harmonize the data structures that we have, so that the data from different partner agencies can be integrated in a meaningful way. So because modeling is a precondition for effectively linking all these heterogeneous data sets that I was mentioning at the beginning. So in this context, we're working with the pilot agencies like ILO, UNICEF, ECLAC, UNODC, FAO, and others to map their different data assets to a common UN data model, what we call the UN data ontology, so that their data can be interconnected and becomes highly interoperable. And while this is a relatively large investment upfront, the cost of collecting and preparing the data in this way for integration is expected to rapidly decrease if we do it right at the beginning. As we gain experience and are able to identify patterns that allow us to automate and streamline this data preparation process, and of course as we build with on tools that are being developed by the data community. So one of the main ideas that is implicit in this work around the knowledge graph is the idea of enabling users to make sense of data, facilitating the users to capacity to establish, to derive insights that are meaningful from the data. So this UNdata effort is developing an ontology that is capturing the semantic concepts, the relationships that allows to transform data into knowledge. And a key component of this is a carefully curated taxonomy of policy areas, which allows the effective linking of data content to the issues that policy decision makers care about. So this ontology will continue evolving, capturing a growing body of knowledge about geographies, time, units of measurement, conceptual definitions of all kinds. And for instance, one of the powerful aspects of it is that it can help us support multilingualism in a very powerful way. So how are we moving forward? As I was saying, we are investing a lot of our initial efforts on data modeling and identifying patterns for data integration. So the next steps is to build data flows that are well orchestrated, automated as much as possible, that we have the ability to monitor how they work and to validate the results, so that this data integration process is resilient, adaptable to changes in the different sources, is repeatable, and it's scalable to an increasing number of sources over time. And also we are exploring how can we use machine learning and artificial intelligence to expand this data modeling and data linking capabilities. For instance, helping us map the different data sets to concepts in the ontology, using entity and concept extraction technologies. So this is just in a schematic way, this background work that is happening, bringing data from the different sources. For instance, in this case, just as an illustration, providers that are delivering the data through SDMX-based APIs, linking this data to the concepts that are captured in the UNdata ontology, and automating this process to ingest the data content efficiently into the UNdata knowledge graph. So that's the focus of a lot of our efforts at the moment. And yeah, with this, I will pass the floor back to Matthias, and if there is any question, I think we will also see a lot of how this looks in practice in the next segments of today's meeting. Thank you, Matthias.
Luis, thank you very much for your excellent presentation. So as Luis already mentioned, we will see what he just explained in some practice in the subsequent presentation. And there we will see that the idea of data integration really results from our need to provide a proper user experience across the various UNdata assets. So this user need led us to the conclusion that we really need to strengthen the integration of data. Without that, we will not be able to provide access to the data assets with the experience that users are expecting. So this is really the background of what Luis presented here. It's really driven by what we want to provide the user with. So, but now I'm opening the floor for any questions or comments that there may be. Maybe I mean, we haven't met for quite a while, so a lot has happened. So this is new to you, that that we are, this approach that we have chosen at this time for the MVP. That's new to you, and so maybe if you have any comments or questions, please, now is that the first time. There will be another opportunity, but maybe now if you have specific questions to Luis. So I don't see any questions in the chat, and I also don't see any hands being raised. Please don't be shy. If someone wants to break the wall, okay, again, Nasaria, please.
Okay, just now you did mention about integration. So at this moment in time, you are just including those agencies that you mentioned just now. That I just heard ILO, ECLEC, FAO, and a few more, I think. And so for the first, the first phase, you will be including these pilot agencies, mainly from UN, right? And then what I didn't see from your slides and from your briefing is actually what does it look like at the UN at the end, at the UN graph or network, something like that. I just saw just now. I don't have any idea how it's going to look like because
Yes.
that is from all these agencies, and how is it going to look like for us here?
Yes. No, thank you very much for this question. So this leads us actually then to the next agenda item where we will actually present how it will look like. So Luis really explained the background and the concept behind. But now in the subsequent presentation, we will see how this looks like in practice from the perspective of users. However, before we move to the next agenda item, also checking again, any other questions or any comments from that anyone would have at this stage? Yes, I see one more hand being raised.
Hi.
Ramya, please.
Yes, I'm Ramya. I'm from UN Women. I'm actually in place of Jessamine and Carnation. She couldn't be here. I have a curious question to Louis. I see the flow chart, the architectural flow chart. So I was a bit confused in terms of there were two data transformation blocks. I understand the first one where you are collaborating or integrating various data sources into one. Yes, and on the right-hand side, I see another data transformation task, and I'm trying to understand what is the main purpose of this transformation is.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe this is it's worth emphasizing. This is an illustration of one of the use cases, the typical use case that we have. What is important, I would say as a message, is that these transformations that need to happen from source to target, from the source to the knowledge graph, imply many different steps. So we are partitioning these steps into very granular tasks that then can be automated. Now, for instance, I have there when we talk about data that comes in SDMX, we are working with the different artifacts of SDMX, the data structure definition, the code list, the concepts, and the extraction of the data sets. Then enriching those data sets, adding descriptors, transforming those source indicator definitions into what will be the indicators in the UNdata sort of ontology, etc. So here the point is simply that we have a lot of steps to go through. Different sources will have different transformations that are required, and all this needs to be orchestrated and automated. So we are using tools like Airflow, for those that are technically sort of interested, to manage these tasks. And my key message here is that this is this involves multiple tasks, multiple workflows that need to be managed together. So we are putting a lot of effort now in developing an infrastructure that allows us to manage and to maintain these workflows. The specifics that you see here in this diagram are just an illustration of one use case.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
But Luis, maybe also just for clarification, I think what you showed here in your chart, there is a more generic level of transformation, and then there is a level of transformation where things are then transitioned and put into the knowledge graph. I think maybe this is something that was illustrated here, that was maybe the reason why you separated those. I think part of that integration is of a more generic nature.
Yes, and I would say the key component in this graph that is part of any of the data sources that we are dealing with is then mapping the concepts from the source to the SDG, to the UNdata ontology. So that mapping of concepts is the key integration component that is part of every data integration flow that we have.
Okay, one more question. I see Lambert, please.
Sure. Yeah, Luis. Hey, good to see you. Quick question about. I see you have in your flowchart you have data cubes, and then they end up in the knowledge graph. Is the idea that in the knowledge graph you're documenting the sort of metadata about the data sets, about the concepts that they're about, or about the values of particular columns, or does the actual data go into the knowledge graph?
Both, and I'll also defer a little bit to Daniel now, but we are not only bringing into the knowledge graph the metadata, but also the data sets themselves. No, so these data cubes are structured in a way that you can think of them as RDF kind of modeling. So every individual data value has descriptors that are part of the knowledge graph. So it's not only the metadata around the data sets, but the data sets themselves are part of the knowledge graph. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
I guess my question was, is one node in the knowledge graph, is a data set one node, or is a data set with 100 million data elements becomes 100 million nodes? That's my question.
So in our ontology, we have this entity called data cube. No? So this is a more abstract data cube, but the data cube is a class that has also, in the implementation, every data point is also represented there. So I don't know if I can maybe defer this technical discussion for a little bit until we see the knowledge graph itself, and we can go into details there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for those questions. Then I suggest let's look at things and then see how all these concepts are leading to a very different type of experience, and also allow to capture the richness of the data that is available in the UN system. So with this, I'm handing over then to Daniel and Ilya. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Matthias, and glad to be here. Daniel Lapidus speaking here. Let me just share my screen. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the product development and research. Ilya, my colleague, will be demonstrating more of the front end, the public-facing parts where you can actually view the knowledge graph. So we'll get to that in a few minutes. But I wanted to take you through a little bit the journey of the research and trying to answer also some of those questions that came up right now around the scale. How do we store all of these data points? What are some of the best examples of this that we have drawn inspiration from, and so on. So three things. First and foremost, I want to just give a little bit of background about this role that I have in the project and the background. Secondly, talking about the research and development work we've done. And third, to demo some of the backend and API products that are part of this platform. And then I'll hand over to Ilya again to demonstrate more of the front and the user-facing aspects. So my role in the team is to lead the product development around the minimum viable product, or sometimes we like to call it the minimum lovable product, to really stress that it's not only about meeting the requirements, but it has to be something that end users want to use, that can compete with other tools, that is at the level where the uptake is very fast. And that means applying cutting edge technology. So not the theory of these ones, but actually trying to make use of many of these technologies to deliver a delightful user experience, and to do all this in an agile way where we can respond to all the feedback that we're getting. So that means feedback on the knowledge graph, on the front-end features and the back-end features. My personal background, which led me on to this, is that I used to be an IT data visualization expert at the Gapminder Foundation in Stockholm, where I learned a lot about data storytelling. I used to develop presentations for Hans Rosling, Melinda Gates, and others to portray the world using data, animated data presentations. Nowadays, I work more in an advisory capacity to some different organizations, and I also have led a number of data projects over the years. I'm very much interested in standards development. I'm involved in the standards development and open data movement quite a bit, and also in data journalism. Specialized overall in technology, open data, and data storytelling with team members like Ilya that you'll meet today here as well, from different parts of the world. What we have seen over the last 20 or so years is a quite quick evolution of both the platforms where users access data and also the technology. So on the top hand side here, you see different platforms like the original UNdata that was launched, I think, back in 2005. And then there came a number of services that we experience online: Statista, Wikidata, the World Bank's Open Data, Our World in Data, and many popular websites to access data. On the lower scale here, you'll see standards that often build upon each other. We have SDMX, schema.org, and this movement towards the knowledge graph, where more of this data can be interconnected. And we see a very tight relationship between the lower part and the upper part here, where as the technology advances, these new websites like Our World in Data and so on become possible, because it's easier to trace the provenance of data, to gather a lot of data, to link the data together. So that's the background, what we're looking at. And we're also looking at the specific technologies, like what goes into building these platforms today. We can talk about Python pandas for doing the data transformations, the semantic web where more and more data gets connected, and many of the technologies like .stat, GraphQL, React, and many others. So this is the landscape that we have been researching quite heavily over the last years, but more specifically for these challenges with UNdata specifically as well. I wanted to talk very briefly about a few parts of that research. So of course, as Luis mentioned, there have been many consultations here also with users, with data partners, agencies. So I'm not going to go into too much detail there. We'll see more aspects of that in a bit. What we've been doing more on the technical side is to look through a collection of research papers. We're collecting some of these research papers, and some of them go more into the sort of analysis of data portals, what works, what doesn't work, and so on. There's quite a lot of articles and research papers on the topic of how these platforms are used. So that's valuable learnings to see what has actually worked over the past decades. We can talk about the MDGs, the SDGs, and so on, right? Open data portals. So that's one bucket of research papers. The other one is on more technical, around comparing these different technologies and knowledge bases out there. And to give an example from this last one, which knowledge graph is best for me, there was a research group that compared some of these huge knowledge graphs that actually store a lot of these linked open data and also a lot of statistical data. So you can compare them on a number of dimensions, the size of these knowledge graphs. But you can also look at the quality metrics within these knowledge bases and talk about like the trustworthiness, the consistency, the timeliness, interoperability, and a number of other aspects. So these are quality dimensions that we are also trying to look at, factoring in a number of these ones as we're building the knowledge graph for UNdata. Some of the other things that we've done in the research phase is to have discussions with open data experts from the Google Data Commons project, from schema.org, from Wikidata. Has been very useful to see exactly what they are doing now. Many of these research papers study what was available 3, 4, 5 years ago, but a lot is happening in the field, and these conversations give us a more real-time update on what these organizations are working on right now. So we've done some in-depth comparisons of these kind of approaches, looking at, for example, to take the example of the Google Data Commons project, which aims to aggregate a lot of public statistics. We can see that their ecosystem is really a number of different open source code libraries. And we're trying to understand which of them that could be reused, built upon, and so forth. And that goes also for the Wikidata project and other existing good projects that have shown how large knowledge bases can be created. Then we moved on to start really working with the MVP to develop something with all this research, and with the help of the Swedish Internet Foundation, we were able to employ this data story cloud technology. And the data story cloud technology that we're using has one part which we call a data manager. It's where we organize and distribute the data. So it's about creating these models, exactly what is a UN data region, country, indicator, what data cube, all of these concepts. That's what's defined in the data manager. And then sitting underneath that is this knowledge graph that makes sure that whatever is edited in the data manager actually complies with data standards and can be connected to other data sources in the future. And lastly, it's about translating all of that data into actual applications, right? Websites and data visualization. So we need quick ways of turning that data into actual experiences for users, whether it's more templated experiences or more specific bespoke experiences. And I just wanted to, with a few finishing slides here on a couple of demos, what this means in practice. We're going to see a lot more in Ilya's presentation, but just very briefly on the data manager. So basically, this is what it looks like when the data, this kind of hierarchy of different concepts end up in the database, where we can see, for example, UNdata, and the numbers here indicate the number of entities that are behind here. How many entities, for example, in terms of topics? There are now 1,400 topics that Luis has been working on with the data team to integrate. And moving on, we can also see how we can access all that data. So we can ask, this shows us the API where developers, front-end developers, or any kind of developer, programmer can go in and ask for this data to get all these topics back, for example, or to list all the indicators in the system independent of source, etc. So this takes us all the way up until where you can actually start building applications with this data. It's organized, it's easy to fetch, it can be fetched in a variety of ways. And with that, I'll hand over to Ilya, but perhaps we can see if there is any question on this before we hand over to Ilya. No questions. I'm sure you'll get a chance to ask more questions at the end of the presentation here as well. But I think we'll move forward if there's no hand raised. Okay, Ilya, over to you.
Thank you, Daniel. Just a second, I'm setting up my system. You can see my screen, right?
Absolutely.
Just a quick introduction. My name is Ilya. Over past 15 years, I've been working as a digital product designer in companies like Spotify, McKinsey, and spent a couple of last years collaborating with Daniel on open data projects. And as Daniel mentioned, and there is a lot of great technology on the backend and brilliant people working on this project. But if we're not creating user interface that's accessible and desirable by users, we will not be able to deliver all those benefits to people who we want to serve. In this presentation, I will quickly explain our process, how we ground our design decisions. I will demo public websites based on one user story. It's hard to grasp website in a presentation format, so I recorded the video of prototype, and I will try to talk over this video, and I briefly touch on data visualization and current status of work. Early on in the project, of course, we understood that IAEG-UNdata will be serving so many different users with different needs, and of course, that's where our design starts. It starts with users and learning about them. We partnered and worked with Deloitte, who developed personas, real people who are currently using IAEG-UNdata portal and the similar applications, create empathy maps and user journeys as they are at this point, in define pain points and areas where we can improve. There was created some ideal user journeys, and based on a workshop, we transform them into features and product backlog that we start building our designs on top of. Of course, like the broader vision, we are in 2022 and an expectation of users are quite high on user experience. We feel that UNdata should not be a place for only technical users. We looked at technical and not technical users, and the experience should be on par with all the other applications. The website should work on mobile, tablet, and desktop. We want to take out data from files and provide data visualizations where users can explore data and find insight on their own, share these visualizations, and use it in their work, education, and other purposes. We want to highlight data partners and data providers of UNdata. We want to create spaces for them on the website and give visibility of them, and make exploration by data provider one of the way to explore the portal. As Daniel and Luis mentioned, we have a powerful knowledge graph on a backend, and we want to bring it to the front end as well, and let users really feel the benefits of it. It's not only about data. Feel that we need to create a space for resources where we explain the best practices of using data, where we provide developer guidelines and guidelines about data visualizations. We also want UNdata to become a community hub. We want to highlight there is amazing projects created with UNdata, and we want to highlight those projects. We want to give them visibility. We want to highlight projects and initiatives of data providers, and this should be accommodated on the website. And of course, it should be multilingual and accessible for all. I'm gonna go through one of, I think it's around 10 user journeys, and explain how we transform this user journey into interface. In this user journey consists of goals, activities, touch points, and functionalities. So we follow one user from the moment of landing on the web page to the point of when user gains some output of the website and use it somewhere else. In this case, starting from simple search, predictive search, filtering results, creating graphs and based on visual on indicators that the user is interested in, and being able to preview and share it with their audience. It starts with this landing page that presents different entry points to all the parts of UNdata website. In this case, the user using search, being able to search for specific subjects and given result in structured manner across topics, indicators, and data partners that related to this search query. After pressing enter, user land on result page that is structured. You can see all indicators that related to this search, data partners, policies, and resources. Indicators presented as an indicator card, which have a data visualization on top of it. So even before diving inside of indicator, user have insight of small insight of what it is, what she will be presented with. Those data visualizations are interactive, so even from the card you can explore it a bit, and when you find what you're looking for, there is a step of filtering. You can decide that I'm only interested in indicators, and then you can narrow down your searches until you are happy with results, and you land on indicator page. It starts with context. We understand that context is very important. We don't want to present data, bare data. We want to visualize, to have a space to talk about what could be found in this data and what is not there. Indicator can user have access to endpoint APIs. If want to use this data in application, there is opportunity of share directly from here and create a correct citation link and title. Data can be explored on a visualization in standardized form on a line charts, map, and table. User can download data in different formats and metadata. Metadata is also presented in structured format. We also don't want to, for some users, that's not end destination of their journey. They might be interested in going to ILO website or exploring ILO webpage on our portal. Visualizations and visualization results can be embedded on our websites. It can be shared as a link. It can be shared on social media platforms. There is a basic customization settings to match the environment of where those visualization will be used. And this was just one simple user story from predictive search to filtering results to indicator and to sharing visualization. I'm gonna use a video that I recorded before to give a bit better feeling of the website, and I will try to talk on top of this video. It's a little bit hard to sync with it. It's a little design karaoke. As I showed before, landing page have predictive search entry point to different parts of the website. We have key indicators with interactive graphs and entry point to indicators. All data partners have their cards that represent information about them and entry point to their pages. We also display resources like glossary, API, and developers resources. You can explore by areas and related topics, plus related goals. This is topic landing page that have information about the topic, related sustainable development goals, and all the related indicators. And data partners that provide data for this policy area. You can also explore in sustainable development goal view or explore graph. On the graph, you can decide to show policies, indicators, topics, data providers, and terms. You can control depth. When you click on one subject, you go directly to the page representing would it be an indicator or topic or data provider. You can explore these connections not only in a structured way from category to data, but interconnection between them. Data section is where all the data can be found. As we serve in different users, some users are in exploration mode and some users understand what they're looking for, and going through data is faster gateway to finding exactly what you're looking for if you know exactly what it is. data partners that can be also filtered. All data partners have dedicated pages on the website. It's contain of information about data partner, links to all resources of the data partner outside of UNdata, collection of indicators from data partner, and possibility to explore the indicators in data visualization format and share these results. Each indicator can be opened and explored, shared. I'm sorry, there is placeholder content, might be mistakes. As I showed before, it can be shared and embedded in the websites or shared directly on social and other channels. We present metadata in a structured format. There's a link that goes out to the more information on data partners' websites. And so data can be downloaded in different formats, in available formats. We have a resource section where we talk about we present articles about important subjects and give guidance on using the UNdata portal and taking advantage of it. We have a community section where we highlight projects built on UNdata and highlight initiatives and projects of our data partners. This was short demo of the website. I hope you were able to follow. Just briefly, I want to mention that what we are working on right now is creating a data visualization kit. We really focusing on providing good data visualization experience on mobile. It's very few platforms that's able to serve interactive data visualization on mobile, and as more traffic coming from mobile, we feel we need to serve these users in the best possible manner. We have this Data Explorer tool that can be used on UNdata portal, but also embeddable outside and can be shared. All our design work is based on design system. We're creating design system where we take accommodation UN branding and have this structured approach where we create systems that can be maintained and evolve for years, made to the scale. And that brings me to the current moment where we working in quick iterations. I work with Deloitte partners on iterating on last design updates. Meanwhile, we develop an MVP, and while working on MVP, we also developing more long-term vision of the platform, kind of more refined design that will be implemented gradually. That was my part. I'll pass it to Matthias.
Yes, no, thank you very much. Thank you to Daniel and to you, Ilya. So Daniel, no, thank you for showing us all the research and all the technology that went into that, what we just saw and presented by Ilya. So this is the minimum viable product. So it's very rich already. It's not minimum, I would say. Maybe it's the wrong word here. It really contains very rich array of functionalities. So thank you very much for presenting that. So now I would like to open the floor for any feedback that here participants may have.
Matthias, there are two questions in the chat from our colleagues from Malaysia and the Executive Officer Secretary. Yeah.
So how you manage the DSD when you receive too many administrative data? That was the first question. So maybe this is a question maybe also to Luis. And then Priscilla is asking, is it possible to download the actual data sets for further analysis by the user as needed? Yes, I think this is a easy affirmative yes. But maybe there's also one more hand raised. So maybe Ramya is also asking a question. So maybe we add that one more question and then before giving back to the presenters. Ramya, please, you have the floor for your question or comment.
Thank you, Matthias. First of all, congratulations to the team, Louis, Matthias, Ilya, and Yuxi and others. So my doubt here is, I'm just trying to clarify here. I see that there has been a lot of development, especially currently that you are working on data visualization. I see that the flexibility that you're introducing is that we are able to select the countries, we're able to select the timeline, the year and the timeline. Would there be a selection option for disaggregated data such as age, sex, or subregions? So I'm looking for, would there be more flexibility in terms of data visualization? And secondly, my other comment or feedback would be, you've shown the last part on community-based data stories, where you will be featuring a lot of policy interventions or data stories as such. So one of my, what I observe or experience is that a lot of times that these data stories are put in together, but I think that could also be segregated into various topics, like how huge your knowledge graph currently looks for data. I assume similar tremendous information and stories out there, which would need an equal knowledge graph. So would there be something of those lines there as well? Thank you.
Ramya, thank you very much for your questions. So then I'm handing over maybe first to Luis, if you want to respond to the question on the DSD, what to do when you receive too many administrative data, and then to Ilya and Daniel on the visualization and also the idea of further developing these community-based stories and the access to them. So first to you, Luis.
Yeah, thank you, Matthias, and thank you for the question. Maybe it's important to clarify the current scope of the content. So we are looking into statistical data, not microdata, so aggregated data. So in that sense, I would put administrative records, for instance, in the category of microdata that is not being handled or is not part of this current process. That said, as we have selected an approach that we believe is extensible for the long-term vision of the project, we don't discard the possibility of, with all these complexities, being able eventually to also incorporate some administrative data. But that's not part of the process right now. So there are other types of standards beyond SDMX that are also relevant for those types of data that we would need to look into. But we are starting, as I said, with statistical data that those have either well-established data structure definitions from some of the agencies, or that can be mapped into what we call proto SDMX molds. No? So we are sort of recreating a DSD for data sources that are not available in SDMX. So the DSDs that we are dealing with are relatively small, relatively contained, not highly dimensional. And if you allow me, Matthias, just a few words regarding the question
only, please.
on the select disaggregations, and I'm sure that there are other inputs from Daniel and Ilya. We are organizing the data in these data queues that allow us to deal with different levels of disaggregation for the same indicator. And so the visualizations are being developed in alignment with what disaggregations are there for different indicators. So this needs to grow over time, but the process of creating visualization tools is going to start handling the different ways in which data are disaggregated. So that's definitely part of the plan. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So then Luis also answered one of the two questions that were otherwise asked. So, but then that leaves, I think, one more question here to Ilya and Daniel. So regarding the access to the community-based stories, so how that could develop and evolve in the future.
I can maybe go first. Thank you very much for excellent question. So yeah, just echoing also what Luis said, we're definitely looking into supporting more of these disaggregations for all of the visualizations, and basically the visualizations will try and pick up whatever data is served by the knowledge graph. So if you select an indicator that happens to have multiple different types of dimensionality, different breakdowns, it will surface that in the interface that you have multiple options you can look at it by. So we're expanding the number of visualizations that can support this. And yeah, I think we're starting with a smaller set of visualizations, the typical ones, but it will be very interesting to see what kind of options we can provide on top of the knowledge graph. In terms of the community, I think that the data stories that we surface, I agree with you that it can, if I understood it correctly, like it would be unfortunate if it's perhaps just a listing of disparate data stories. There has to be some logic to them. There has to be certain type of quality and arrangement. And this is something we added quite recently, started working more with. So I think we'd be super happy for more comments on that. But I'll hand over to you, Ilya, maybe for some specific requests on where you see this section going with featuring data stories.
I think you answered it really well. This is our one of last additions and to the website, and I see definitely it's going. It starts simple of us highlighting projects and giving explanation around why we're highlighting them and what is important there and what tools been used, and kind of I think learning by example is something that we service that we want to provide to broader community, and having use cases is very important in this work. Later on, I think we will be introducing much more structured insights, so it can be navigated by topics and by areas of knowledge, and linked to indicators and data providers back. So I think we're stepping into this space and definitely have a vision to develop it further.
Yep. Thank you very much. Now I'm also trying to be conscientious of time. There was also one question regarding download of data or access to data. And here Daniel responded in the chat. Both download and API access will be supported. That's the expectation here. Okay, I think now in the interest of time, I think while we had great presentation. Thank you very much again, Ilya, and thank you very much, Daniel. I think we also need to move on to our last agenda item. which are the next steps in the future work plan. And on that, I would like to hand over to Rob, who will give us an introduction or presentation of how this will now further develop. Again, thank you very much, Ilya and Rob. Ilya and Daniel, really great, really yeah, very excited about it. Thank you. Thank you very much. So Rob, then over to you.
Thanks, Matthias. Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Good. So I'll see if I can go fairly quickly here because I know that we're coming up to the end of the meeting. What I wanted to talk about a little bit is really the next steps and the future plans. And there are sort of three key components that I want to touch on. To recap, hopefully you've got a sense now that what we're talking about is more than just a data catalog or a data portal. You can see the value of the integration of the harmonized concepts, also the context that goes with it, and a whole set of diverse users and activities that we're trying to support. And I think that I won't go too much further, but we have got a platform here that we're working with our partners at Data Story that gives us this flexible, extensible platform that connects us with semantic web linked open data type concepts. So that's really important. And hopefully Luis has demonstrated that you know, all of the UN skills and data standardization and integration are really important things here. If I look at the next slide, what we're really interested in our dialogue with UN agencies and any other partners that we're dealing with is really looking for both the vision alignment and the value alignment. So the origins of this work really are part of the Secretary General's data strategy for the UN. And each data partner or participant, you know, has their own particular vision, or in fact, all of the people that are part of all of this activity have personal visions. So what we're interested in getting is some feedback, which is, does this align with where you think you should be going? And the other thing is, can you see yourself as part of this, right? And so we will proceed with these conversations in the days and weeks ahead. I think the second thing is really, is there a value alignment? So if we're imagining that there are external players who will be doing some analysis or forming some insights that will lead to an action, that will lead to an outcome and have impact, does this really, you know, do you think that this is actually going to be an important component to help make that happen in a faster or better way? And does it also align with really the values that your particular organization are focused on? And I think lastly, it's important that, does it actually add value to your own staff? Or does it add value to you know, a broader sort of open source or open data community? These are all really important things because we can give you a piece of technology or we can give you some content, but obviously we want to make sure that it delivers value. In terms of the business model, what we've got is a core platform. So there's technologies and templates, there's the support and evolution of it. This is a centralized activity. We've got Data Story as a partner. Luis has been working hard with others on harmonized vocabularies and ontologies. So again, I think that this is an important collaborative effort as we go forward. And it's important to stress also that the standardized vocabularies that are created themselves are assets that should be downloaded and used in other areas, as well as used within the context of the platform. We engage with data partners. We've got new data sets that are characterized. Luis has talked at length about the ingestion, provisioning, and so on. We will be generating usage data from the actual platform operations. This is important to help direct where it is we're going. And it's also useful, I think, for partners in this journey to understand how their data that becomes part of our broader set is actually getting more exposure and hopefully more impact. One key thing for us is to address how we're actually going to invest in this. So this is where there's activities underway on sponsorship and investment. And so that's an important part of what we do next. I think that a key thing that we've got into our business model here is that we can scale based on demand and budget. So it's cloud-based, which means it's pay as you go. If we need to scale up to deal with something, then that's great. If we need to throttle back because there are budget constraints, we can also do that as well. So again, you know, I think a message is coming out architecturally and everything we're doing here is that need for flexibility, because we need to be able to respond to change and to things that are happening, or to discoveries that we make as we deliver this solution. And then one of the other important items that's coming up will be discussions really around governance. Who are the stakeholders? How do we agree on vision goals, and where do we take this collectively? So in terms of the roadmap ahead, our key focus is delivering on the minimum viable product or minimum lovable product or solution. We want feedback from stakeholders. I think this discussion today is an important part of that journey going forward. That's a November timeframe activity. We've wanted to demonstrate the feasibility, have some concrete examples that can demonstrate the vision and value, and have an initial set of data providers or data partners, as well as also harmonized concepts to illustrate, really what it is we're trying to do. We need to establish the governance and business engagement models in December. The first half of 2023 really is focused on both getting a sort of robust production version of the platform in place, but most importantly, it's about continuing to work with our data partners to increase the number of partners, increase the number of data sets, grow the number of harmonized concepts, so that there is actually useful content in this platform. And this will obviously be driven in part by the amount of investment that's available, and also the engagement that we're actually able to achieve. And we'll get feedback, and that'll allow us to iterate what the actual solution is out there. We are using a continuous integration and deployment model. We do the production release in June of 2023 with core elements in place, and then second half of 23 and beyond really is around continuing to evolve the platform in new directions. And again, an important part of that is securing the sponsorship and the investment. So to summarize, I hope today that we've been able to show you the approach that we have collectively selected, why it is we are going in the direction that we are with the MVP, the power of the knowledge graph, and other things. You've seen some site maps and flows and other elements. You've seen an elaboration of what we're doing with the data in terms of getting it into the platform. And we've shared really what are the elements of where it is we think we're actually going next. So with that, I'm going to stop that presenting, and I'll hand it back to you, Matthias, for questions.
Hello, Rob. No, thank you very much. So we saw huge efforts, huge progress, but still also quite a road ahead. We need your feedback and your support on that. So no, thank you very much, Rob, for detailing the overall plan very well. So now I'm handing over here to the audience, to you, for any feedback or any comments. So no, let me just check in the chat whether there are any questions. Here's some questions on the chat.
I see Amelia has her hand up as well.
Yes. So then maybe I read the two questions from the chat and then also ask Amelia. So the first question from the chat here. Thank you, Rob. My question is, can other agencies' data, such as data from World Bank, IMF, can be found by a click on the UNdata website? That's one question. And the second question is, the MVP is technical. There are users on the planner side that is not technical. I mean, the presentation now was very technical for this particular audience, but the platform is not meant to be for expert users. It's really meant for any user. So these two questions, and then Amelia, you also had a question. I hand over to you, please.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, if you can speak a little louder, your voice is not very strong. I mean, your voice is strong, but the audio is not very strong.
Yeah, Teams always does this to me. My question is whether there might be an additional opportunity to provide feedback on the website, once the MVP is published. That way we could look at it and experiment, because the presentation was excellent and I don't really have many comments just off the top of my head. So that was just my question.
Yes. So here maybe a direct response to your question. Yes, we expect, and that is also next steps. So we always anticipated or planned for the launch of this minimum viable product by end of November. We have still 2 more weeks to go, but we hope and expect that then we will be able to make the website accessible. Of course, it's password protected, but here this audience, we just think how to make that available to you, and then you will be able to provide further feedback. Okay, and then I'm handing over to Rob on these two questions that were put in the chat, or maybe not only limit to Rob you, but maybe if you want to take a first.
Sure. I mean, question about will we be connecting to data from other sources? I mean, I think as a general statement, yes. I think that's driven by understanding what we can provide in terms of a value-added presence in that area. So I think Ilya has demonstrated the data provider or data partner click-throughs or information that's there. I think that the community or the feedback that we get from trying out the solution will in part help us understand what content needs to go there. So there's nothing precluding that. I think the question is more, do we want to add some of those data assets? Ironically, of course, some of those people that have been mentioned are ones that basically redistribute UN data right now. So we're sort of looking to turn that one around. Second question, Matthias, just refresh my memory, the second question.
The second question was so whether it's also for more general users and not only for people.
To really stress here is, I think, and maybe it didn't come through as clearly. So there's several sets of, if you want to call them users. The first set is really the end users that we've talked about, and that can be on a range of novice to expert. These are people that are looking to either see some analysis or some visualizations, do a search, or have a discovery as to what data assets might be available to help them, and also to be able to get access to the harmonized data that's come through the work of Luis and others in the platform. So that's a very important sort of primary user that's there. I think the second one is really what I would call data partner users. So this is folks at the agency, some of whom are on the call, that says you've got data, it is distributed today. What you'd like to do is also see it be integrated with other things and get more value. So that's another group that we're focused on, and I think Luis has touched on that. I do think that the third one really has to do with development. So again, this is where, as we go forward, whether it's content development in terms of working on new papers and content, or whether it's perhaps some sort of community-based model where we can contribute code, these will all be important things, I think, that are there as we go forward. And the sort of the fourth group of people in the room really are those that have an executive or senior management stake in really seeing the results, whether that be investors, sponsors, or various management groups in the broader UN family. So I think that hopefully that clarifies that that's the case. I mean, I think we've done a deep dive on the tech, on the components of the platform, on the data and the harmonization, but obviously it comes back to a lot of the work that was done already in the journeys and workshops around user needs.
Thank you very much, Rob. Now I'm also here looking at the time. So thank you very much for the questions. But maybe now I think we need to conclude here our meeting because we are just running out of time right now. So just some concluding remarks from my side. Maybe most important, next steps. So one next step is then end of November. We hope to make this MVP available to you. It will be not public. It will be just per login to specific users where we expect feedback. Then also for the rest of the year, we expect that we will populate this MVP further with content and data. Right now, it's fairly, while the scope of work that Luis has been undertaking is very wide, only some of the data is already available. So we need to continue working on that. So, and then also very important, and should also mention this, we also need to still secure funding for 2023, just to be very open about that. And on that funding, depending on that funding, it will then also depend to which extent and we can move that work forward. The objective is to have a public release by mid-2023. But again, it will be depending on the funding to what extent it can go beyond what we have already now, and also depending to what degree we can make it available for general use, because infrastructure costs money, and that money needs to be available on a how can I say, more sustainable basis. That also just leads me to my last comment. The long-term planning, it's underway. Also, Rob explained here the work that we have been undertaking there. And also here, the long-term funding is something that needs to be addressed in 2023 so that we can fulfill our ambition, which is having a full-fledged UNdata by 2025. So this is our overarching objective, and this MVP is just it's a very, very important step, and I'm very happy that we reached that step, but quite some more work is ahead of us. So with this, again, I would like to thank all the presenters and partners, especially Data Story and our lead consultants, Daniel and Rob, and also our internal team, Luis and Sean, and many others that were involved. And I would also like the ones attending today and providing their feedback. So this was first meeting after a long time. There needs to be soon again a meeting or further interaction with you to receive your further feedback. So with this, again, thank you very much to all. And yeah, with this, I would like to conclude then today's meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you for your time.
Bye.